In this module, we're going to obtain a multiple line chart or multiple line graph of the relationship between religious attendance and attitudes toward marijuana legalization, controlling for whether respondents have children. Recall that the relationship is additive. The effect of religious attendance is very similar at both values of kids, and kids also has an effect. We could look at the percentages again, but here is the relationship in a multiple line graph. Notice how clear this is. You can see people without children is the dashed line. The dashed line sort of floats above the solid line, which is people with children. And this line drops by about 35 points or so across the values of the independent variable, which is represented down here on the x-axis. We see a very similar relationship for respondents with children at a lower level of approval of marijuana. You can see here the kid effect is about 15 points here and about 12 points here. Very symmetrical looking. Again, I would emphasize how what a benefit having a graphic to accompany a often confusing set of cross-tabulation percentages can be. Let's recreate this line chart. It should be getting familiar now. Let's go to graphs. There's one change here. Go to line. Instead of using simple, we're going to click multiple. So make sure you come down here and select multiple. We want two lines inside the graphic space now. One for those with children and one for those without children. So the change in the interface now is that there is an added box that says define lines by. As before, the category axis is the independent variable. So let's click that, and that's going to be attend 3. And define lines by means control variable. What variable is going to be used to differentiate between the lines? That's the control variable kids. Let's go down and pick up kids. There we go. And then as before, we want some version of the dependent variable grass to go into the lines represent panel. And just as following the rules here, or just to refresh our memories, I'm going to right click on grass, check variable information, and note that those who favor legalization are coded 1 on grass. Let's click other statistic, lights up the box, grass goes in. We don't want the mean value of grass, so we need to change statistic. As we did before, come down to percentage inside, a value of 1 on the low end and a value of 1 on the high end. Seems like all the examples we're graphing the values inside or the cases inside a value of 1. It isn't always it's not always 1. But in this case, it is. We want to graph the percentages who favor legalization. Continue. That's all there is to it. To get the basic graph, click OK. And here we go. Let's get into the editor and make some real changes here. We need to, of course, unbold the titles, have a new x-axis title. We need to white out the space, change the lines in terms of weight and how they're represented. As is often the case, let's coax SPSS to show us the properties window. We can modify these elements in any order, really, but let's do the titles first. I'm going to select x-axis title, hold down Control, and select the y-axis title and unbold them. Apply. Let's change the titles of both. This religious attendance 3 cats is kind of clunky. I'll just take out the 3 cats part. Religious attendance. And then over here, this needs to be a much more descriptive title. I click once, I pause, I click again, and we will change this to percentage legalize. I'll put that in quotes. Marijuana. And just click off. All right, now let's do the background. It's all the chart, the graph area is already selected here, so I'm going to white it out. Apply. We'll take out the border too. Apply. Getting what's Edward R. Tufte would call an erased graph, something where only the main elements really stand out for us. I'm going to click one line. Both lines are selected, and let's make them both heavier. 2. 1.5 or 2 is good. Now the without kids line is the upper line. Let's click once on it. That deselects the lower line and then selects the upper line. Let's make this line dashed. Apply. And we can make it black. Apply. Now click once on the lower line. It's selected, and we'll just make it black too. Okay. All right, this is a nice looking graphic, but let's make a couple of other changes here. Let's move the legend here into the graphing area. I'm going to grip it, just pull it over. And the other change is let's alter the aspect ratio of this graphic. This is a nice looking graph, but SPSS, the graphs that SPSS produces tend to be a little too tall for their width. Let's change the aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is the ratio of width to height, or depending on what you read, the height to width. Graphs tend to look better when they're about 1.5 times as wide as they are high, so or tall. So for example, an aspect ratio in which the graph would say be like 5 units tall would be about 7.5 units wide. In fact, HD TVs are even wider than that. I think they're 9 to 16. I believe in any properties window that you have, there's a tab called chart size. I see it here. I'm going to click on chart size. See, this ratio is about 5.2 to 6.5. Let's alter that a little bit. Make the graph stretch out left to right a little bit more. I'm going to uncheck maintain aspect ratio. I'll leave the 5.2 alone. We'll move over here and just change that 6 to a 7. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that spreads it out some. You can experiment around. You could even make it wider if you want to. SPSS is very flexible when it comes to your charting preferences. But we'll leave this. It looks pretty good.